This video is brought to you by NetEase Games. Hey Wisecrack, Dr. Chris here, and today we're talking about a kid's cartoon that still haunts our grown-up nightmares, Courage the Cowardly Dog. This show is weird. Between its empty, isolated setting, its bizarre plot lines, and its unsettling animation style, the show was just off.
Return the slab, or suffer my curse.
And because of that, it terrified a generation of young viewers. But was it creepy just for creepiness' sake?
Oh, such fuzz, such fuzz. It does demand that I be naughty.
No way, because while it was busy thoroughly freaking us out, it was also doing something else, showing us how fear could save or ruin us. We'll explain in this Wisecrack Edition on Courage the Cowardly Dog. While Courage may show us how fear shapes us, there's plenty of other movies, TV shows, and even games that show us we need to be fearless to survive. Today's sponsor, Life After, is just one example. Life After is an open-world doomsday survival game that is free to play on iOS, Android, and PC. As a player, you'll be able to explore the world by land, air, and sea. You can collect resources, craft tools and weapons, and build a camp of your own. Oh, and along the way, you'll battle hordes of zombies to survive. If you check the game out now, you'll be able to participate in their awesome Resident Evil crossover that will only last until the 17th. Everyone that logs in now will receive a free motorcycle to use in-game. During the event, you will also be able to access limited items from the first crossover event, as well as new items like Albert Wesker's outfit and Jill Valentine's outfit. You'll also be able to battle insane bosses from the Resident Evil series. You can check all that out by using the link in the description to download the game for free. Check out Life After today, and thanks to NetEase Games for sponsoring this video.
We interrupt this program to bring you Courage the Cowardly Dog Show, starring Courage the Cowardly Dog!
And now for a quick recap. Courage the Cowardly Dog is, well, a fearful canine living in the middle of nowhere, Kansas, with a kindly old Scottish lady, Muriel, and her cranky husband, Eustace. If this plotline seems a bit prosaic, the show itself is anything but. Courage's adventures are not the wholesome games of SpongeBob or the whimsically imaginative adventures of the Rugrats. The reason for its distinctiveness is simple. Courage the Cowardly Dog, more than any other cartoon we can think of, clearly went to great lengths to scare the hell out of its young audience. Whether it was parodying hardcore horror flicks like The Exorcist, or inventing its very own terrors, like the vengeful three-headed chicken from outer space, it really pulled out all the stops to ensure it gave us a childhood fright we'd never forget. And the reason it resonated so well has everything to do with the protagonist. See, Courage himself makes for an oddly perfect avatar for the psychology of a child. As a little purplish pink dog, he's physically dwarfed by the world around him and only has a limited understanding of it, making much of it appear quite frightening. This happens to be the same exact reason why small children are so easily scared. Their underdeveloped brains and limited pool of past experience to draw from make it impossible for them to accurately assess the threat which outside stimuli pose. As a result, perfectly harmless things might appear terrifying. Also, like a young child, Courage has a restricted ability to communicate his fears. Eustace perpetually writes his screams of terror off as the panicked reactions of a stupid dog. While Muriel is much more compassionate, she is similarly unable to understand what has him so spooked.
What is it, Courage?
So he's left alone to deal with fears which no one else seems to understand. Like a young child who can't comprehend why his parents insist on sending him to bed when there are clearly monsters under there.
Eustace, must you really sleep in the attic? It's so cold.
He seemed happy to me.
Understanding Courage as an avatar for a young child becomes a sort of heartbreaking exercise when you consider the poor pup's early years. They were marked by the severe trauma of watching his parents launched into space by a deranged veterinarian. And while this is a typically absurd plot detail for a Cartoon Network show, it also acts as a weirdly effective analogy for childhood trauma. Witnessing their loved ones in danger from a crazy vet or whatever else fundamentally shatters a child's sense of safety. The after effects of such a huge shock to their developing psyche can linger for a long time. As a result of his trauma, Courage now lives in a heightened state, anxiously expecting the worst at every turn. In particular, he has developed a clear case of separation anxiety. panicking every time Muriel leaves his sight and constantly worrying about her safety. As is common for children who experience loss at a young age, he now lives in fear of his other loved ones leaving as well.
My poor thing. Out here all alone? What courage you have.
Most episodes begin with him freaking out about a danger that no one else is bothered by. But importantly, he is sometimes incredibly wrong. In the episode Heads of Beef, Courage is convinced that the new burger joint in town is secretly killing off its customers to use them as meat, Sweeney Todd style. After thoroughly freaking out and knocking the owner unconscious in his bid to rescue Eustace, Courage discovers that he was wrong all along. His mind has been so molded by his early experiences that he lives in a constant state of terror, which can cause him to panic unnecessarily.
That sure is one good-looking statue. When can we eat it?
However, because he lives in a place riddled with aliens, ghosts, giant insects, and the like, Courage's initial fears tend to be pretty well founded, more often than not. In fact, thanks to his hyper-alert nature, he's actually frequently able to save the day. While Eustace and Muriel continually walk blindly into all kinds of danger, Courage spies the threat early enough to take action. The two parts of his name are what makes him the show's hero. He is cowardly enough to feel threatened by all the crazy stuff life throws at him, but he has the courage to power through it to protect the people he cares about.
Things I do for love.
This is important. In making Courage's neurosis not only well-founded, but actively life-saving, the show tells us something about fear itself, namely that the emotion isn't a weakness. Rather, it's a natural and necessary part of life, key to keeping us safe. This is underscored by the introduction of a recurring character known simply as the computer, a well-spoken AI who lives inside Courage's computer and who, like an awful lot of people, is kind of a jerk to him.
You're such a lousy typist.
In particular, the computer seems to take issue with the whole idea of fear. He prides himself on being a cold, calculating machine. When a freak storm allows him to take control over Muriel's body, he uses it to perform a series of death-defying stunts to show just how unafraid he is. But being fearless isn't necessarily a strength. It might just mean you don't value anything or anyone enough to worry about them being harmed.
Well, it's not like I'm scared or anything. It's just that if there's an electrical surge, I could crash, get wiped, zippo.
And again, it's Courage's overwhelming concern for the safety of those around him which regularly inspires him to save the day. But while fear can be helpful or even fun in the right context, it can also ruin people. While Courage has basically internalized his trauma, many of the show's villains reveal what can happen when inner pain is expressed outwardly. Episodes The Tower of Dr. Zalost and The Shadow of Courage both feature characters who break bad as a result of their own suffering. In the first, Dr. Zalost is a mad scientist who is so deeply depressed that he launches a barrage of emotion-altering cannonballs to make everyone as unhappy as he is. In the latter episode, The Shadow takes to terrorizing Courage and his family, only stopping when Courage finally manages to connect with him emotionally and convince him to follow his dreams rather than ruining other people's lives.
I don't know how to make it in showbiz, but up there are the real stars. Why don't we hang with them?
You mean become the shadow of a real star?
It's worth a try.
These episodes offer a far more complicated idea of evil. They suggest that, much of the time, the people who scare us the most are the ones most wrapped up in their own fears. The lesson? If we let it overwhelm us, fear makes monsters of us all.
What's the good of having all the money in the world if it doesn't bring any happiness? And if I'm not happy, no one deserves to be happy.
And if you think we're reading too much into this terrifying children's show, guess what? The creator, John R. Dilworth, agrees with us, saying, "I don't portray psychopaths. Those don't interest me. I'm very much interested in the repressed traumas of villains. The idea of going deeper, trying to assign an etymology of bad behavior to childhood trauma is based on actual science. That's the science of psychiatry." Nowhere is this more true than with Eustace, the most constant source of fear in Courage's life. A grumpy old man who never has a kind word to say and mostly seems to exist only to abuse the other members of his household. Eustace would have been tragically familiar for too many young viewers. But we learn more about his past childhood throughout the show, and it turns out that his own hostility is rooted in the treatment he received as a child. The way he treats Courage is just a replication of the way his own mother treated him.
Stupid boy.
stupid dog.
berating him constantly and favoring his older brother, all to ensure that he lived in constant fear of not measuring up.
See you later, useless.
And while it's heavy stuff for a creepy kids cartoon, it's also sadly true to life. Many adults carry their own childhood abuse with them, inflicting the fear that they felt onto others rather than learning to process it in a healthy way.
Stupid dog.
But while Courage extends a lot of sympathy to many of its more monstrous characters, it also has a pretty empowering central message that it's important to take action in the face of those who make us feel unsafe, even if it can be a really scary thing to do. In one of the series' most infamous episodes, Freaky Fred, the family is visited by a relative named Fred who narrates his actions with a rhyming inner monologue.
That's when my tired eyes beheld a doggy dog. Like dog he spelled. D-O-G is what he spelled, and that's how I spell naughty.
And compulsively shaves people's hair off because it makes him feel naughty. Because Muriel and Eustace ignore Courage's protests about their creepy new house guest, Fred is able to trap Courage in the bathroom and forcibly shave him. Fred is one of the many figures from Courage who lingers with viewers years later, even if they struggle to put a finger on exactly what made him so unsettling.
Hello, new friend. My name is Fred. The words you hear are in my head. I said my name is Fred, and I've been very naughty.
Looking back though, the tale is basically a Cartoon Network friendly story about a child predator. Fred is terrorizing Courage in his own home while other family members refuse to acknowledge that this creepy compulsive rhymer is dangerous, despite our protagonist's warnings. Fear has an ability to make us feel unworthy or cowardly. This is something many abusers prey on, but Courage's fears are valid and he deserves to have them taken seriously. Fortunately, he eventually realizes this and makes a call to Fred's mental institution. The villain is promptly carted away. The episode, The Mask, widely regarded as one of the show's best, returns to this idea of how immobilizing fear can be with a tale about a couple of friends named Kitty and Bunny.
I was forced to leave my home and my best friend, Bunny.
Some have argued that it's a thinly veiled allegory for a same-sex couple. Bunny has been forbidden from seeing Kitty and is being held captive by her vicious partner, Mad Dog. Kitty, now wearing the titular mask, has come to believe that all canines are evil and attacks Courage every time they meet. While Kitty lashes out in the same way that Eustace, Dr. Zalost, and so many others do, Bunny's fear pushes her to accept the abusive treatment she receives from her boyfriend, convinced that she deserves nothing better. Again, wrapping heavy subjects like domestic abuse and homophobia up in its colorful cartoon language, the show gets at how easy it is for us to be made afraid of who we really are. To feel like we need to hide ourselves no matter the cost of happiness. Watching Kitty and Bunny ride off triumphantly after Courage rescues them is a bright, brilliant way to tell a young audience that this simply isn't true.
Now we can be best friends forever.
While Courage's attention is typically drawn towards the monster of the week, deep down he shares Bunny's same ultimate fear, not being good enough. Courage clings to Muriel because she is the one person left who reaffirms his sense that he has value. And yet, he puts up with Eustace's abuse because on some level, he doesn't entirely believe it. That nagging voice we all have on some level, the one that insists that we aren't good enough, is even given physical shape in the series finale, Perfect. The episode sees an old school teacher dubbed the Perfectionist demanding that Courage prove his worth by performing a never-ending series of tasks up to her impossible standards. The more he struggles, the more she berates him, steadily grinding away at his confidence and adding to his anxiety. By the time she orders him to sleep perfectly, which prevents him from actually sleeping at all, he's pretty much losing his mind. That is, until a friendly green fish in his bathtub offers some sage advice to stop aiming for perfection and embrace who he is.
With all your imperfections, you can do anything.
And just like that, he is able to vanquish the nagging voice of the perfectionist and the fear that she feeds on. And so, one of the weirdest, darkest, most soul-rattling shows that the Cartoon Network ever aired comes to a genuinely heartwarming conclusion.
There's no such thing as perfect.
Huh?
You're beautiful as you are, Courage.
Courage was able to get inside our heads when we were kids because, as disturbing as it might be to admit, it really spoke our language. And one of the reasons it continues to resonate is that it isn't just invested in scaring its viewers, it also wants to teach us about what it means to be scared. That our fears matter even if others dismiss them. That we can overcome the things we're scared of, and ultimately, that there is no shame in being afraid. So what do you think, Wisecrack? Is Courage the Cowardly Dog in all its weirdness a wonderful exploration of childhood fear? And is that why it means so much to us as adults? Let us know in the comments. Big thanks to our patrons for all your support. Hit that subscribe button like you have no fears, and be sure to ring that bell. And as always, thanks for watching. Peace.